If we knew more about our sleep, what would we do differently? Would we go to bed at a consistent time or take steps to reduce interruptions to our sleep? With Sleep Score, Apple Watch measures your bedtime consistency, interruptions, and sleep duration. Then, every morning it combines these factors into an easy-to-understand score from 1 to 100. So you'll know how to take the quality of your sleep from okay to very high. Know your sleep score with Apple Watch. iPhone 11 or later required.
Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of Susan LoPresti Wellness, Mind, Body, and Soul. This is the podcast where we explore the highs, the lows, and everything in between when it comes to a woman's life, her health, and all aspects of navigating a midlife landscape. I'm your host, Susan LoPresti, and today I have a guest with me, Alyx Coble-Frakes, and I believe that Alyx is going to provide us with so much valuable information, especially for us as midlife and older women. Alyx is a dedicated social entrepreneur with a strong background in both business and health and wellness. Over the past decade, Alyx has honed her business acumen, coupled with 8 years of experience specifically in the health and wellness sector. Her journey into entrepreneurship began in earnest after returning from the Peace Corps in 2015, where she felt disconnected from her own health. This personal experience ignited her passion for wellness and led her to embark on a healing journey. Recognizing the need for better health support systems, Alyx founded a health coaching company which served as the precursor to the agenda. Her vision and leadership has been critical in transforming the agenda from a health coaching initiative into a comprehensive platform that is dedicated to women's hormonal health and wellness. And without further ado, Alyx, welcome to my podcast. I'm so excited to have you here today, and I'm excited for us to jump into this powerful conversation.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're
I'm really
very
excited.
welcome. You're welcome. So, Alyx, I found your story very interesting, and especially that you were in the Peace Corps. So, what was going on at that point in your life personally and health-wise?
Yeah, so when I was in the Peace Corps, it was a really new experience of living in a different country. I left right after graduation from college. So I was like 10 days post-graduation on a plane to a different country. And that was a little crazy of an experience for me. And when I was in the Peace Corps, I had an emergency appendectomy after I'd been in my site for 1 month. So I had to travel down to a hospital and get my appendix removed kind of out of the blue. And then when I was there, an old injury surfaced. So I had had some herniated discs. Like, I don't even know when that had happened. But when I had less access to the care and some of the support that I was used to, it highlighted some of these other issues that had likely been going on in my body for a long time. So that was a really big connection point for me when I came back from the Peace Corps in 2015. My grandma was diagnosed with cancer and she ended up dying later that year. So she ended up dying in December of 2015. And one of the things that really struck me in that process that was pretty devastating is I had been learning about food, the way that we should eat a lot more, a lot of how the modern diet and exercise is kind of out of whack with what our bodies need. And at the same time, going with her to some oncology visits and seeing the food that was in the oncology ward, right? Like donuts and cookies and platters of shit that is just like,
Crazy,
oh,
right?
hey, sugar feeds cancer. So
Yes.
I understand that like maybe people are feeling bad and could use a pick me up. And like, what about like a fruit salad? I don't know, like so kind of seeing some of those conflicts of interest in real time was devastating as well as inspiring for me to continue to understand my own health journey and complexity in the modern world and like what are we doing here. So
But what are
I
we
think those
not
are
doing also? What are
what are
we
we not doing
not
here.
doing as well, right?
Yeah. And then what are we agreeing to without even really being conscientious of what we're signing up for. And that became more and more apparent as I was going through building a health coaching company, building the agenda. Like I was on hormonal birth control for over a decade without really diving into the literature of what potentially can happen to the body from using these products long term. What even happened to my own body from using these products long term, like anxiety, mood disorders, a disconnection from my body and the way that our cyclical bodies work. And so all of that has really made me curious and inspired to keep doing the work that we're doing.
And so tell me about your company, the agenda. What is that all about?
Yeah, so the agenda was a offshoot from starting a health coaching company. So I started a health coaching company in 2018, and I was tracking my sales conversions at that time. And I started to see all of these sales clump together because I would highlight them in green after somebody converted in to be a client in my health coaching practice. Just so I could like visually see, oh yeah, like the money's coming in, right? I'm manifesting, I'm working on like building this company. And I kept seeing all these clumps of green together. And I was like, what's happening? And I realized I was having higher sales around the ovulation phase of my menstrual cycle and worse sales during the luteal phase or on my period when I was really tired.
Of your cycle?
Yes.
Explain that.
Yeah, so I was like, am I crazy? What's happening? What's going on? So I found a study. There's only one study that I could find, but it was of exotic dancers, and they split them up into women on birth control and those who are not on birth control. And the women who were not on birth control all saw an increase in tips during ovulation up to 30%. So the range varied, but like at the highest end, 30% increase in tips, and they all saw an increase in tips during ovulation. And when we trace that back through the evolutionary biology, our body really wants to make a baby to pass on our DNA, pass on our legacy, even if our brain does not want to make a baby that time. So we send off different hormones, different pheromones, different chemicals to people around us, and it makes us harder to say no to. So that's kind of what was proven out in that study, and what I found in my own is just like it's easier for us to communicate. We generate a lot of warmth during ovulation because we have very pro-social hormones. Estrogen is high. That makes us like when people get pulled into our magnetism a lot easier during that time. And so that is definitely why I was seeing an impact in my sales.
That's incredible. So what happens for this woman once she's in perimenopause or menopause and she no longer has a period? Does her business go?
Yeah. No, so even during perimenopause, women are still having surges and declines of estrogen, and unless you have your ovaries removed, you're still having estrogen throughout the body throughout the rest of your life cycle. And so women who, well, like the clients who have used our stuff have talked about in menopause, feeling like maybe there's less intensity of some of the peaks and valleys, but still noticing some slight hormonal fluctuations and variations. And so we talk a lot about tracking with the moon as a way to tap into that cyclical energy if you don't have your own cycle anymore. So we have a lot of our users who are post-menopause who will use our content still with the phases of the moon.
I love that. Is your business an app? Do you have an app for it and a membership?
Yeah, so our first product was actually a planner. So we had a physical planner first, and that was our first product onto the market. Then all of that content translated into a mobile app, which is free to download. It is on Android and iOS, and almost our entire product suite there is free to use. We do have an upgraded subscription if people want to dive really into the weeds and get some of that coaching support with their cycle. But we've got the planner, we've got an app, we've got a lot of products, and right now we're working on some CPG or like direct to consumer products that are actually blended for the phases of the menstrual cycle. Because when we look at wellness as a whole category, there's a lot of different product suites under the wellness kind of umbrella, and it's a really multi-trillion-dollar industry, right? Like people really get into the weeds in their health and wellness. But all of those products that we've got in the space have been created based on studies around men's bodies. So when women get frustrated, this is why like diets don't work, right? With women, or like intermittent fasting, we started seeing this huge intermittent fasting craze. And men dropping weight like that, 20, 30 pounds, 50 pounds in a couple of months. Women sometimes seeing weight increase despite eating less. And it's because we have different calorie requirements throughout the cycle. And so when we're just following a study that's based on somebody's body that does not work like our body, obviously we're not going to see the same results as they're going to be seeing. So as we look out towards the future of the health and wellness landscape, it's like, how can we recreate this category in a way that actually serves people in cyclical bodies.
Yeah. I heard that about intermittent fasting with women because if
Yeah.
we don't eat in the morning, our cortisol levels go up as well.
Yep.
So, yeah, and it's not the same with men. I just recently heard that. I had someone on my podcast who did talk about that. So, what
Yeah.
kind of products do you offer women?
So right now we just launched our first big kind of run at CPG. So we are launching perfume for the phases of the menstrual cycle. So there are 4 different blends that complement the pH that we have during the 4 phases. And they've got herbs and essential oils, but it's a spray, but that really help calm or ground or enlighten, like whatever you need during that phase, kind of the natural energy of the phase. There's a lot around aromatherapy and the power of scents. And so we're really creating these blends to support women in each of the phases of their cycle. And so there's a lot that we can do from there. Our team's got a lot of ideas, but we kind of just have to take it one step at a time and see. But that's where we're looking towards is honestly, there's an opportunity to recreate everything, which is exciting
Yeah,
because women have just been left out of the story. So it's really exciting and also overwhelming, right? They're like so many things that, like even another the exercise one, but sleep is another one. Women need more
yeah,
sleep during different phases of the cycle, but there and sometimes we need less sleep. There during ovulation, I'm pretty good around 5 to 7 hours a night, but in the late luteal phase, you need more like 9 to 10. But that study that was done that recommended every adult needs 8 hours of sleep was done around men's bodies.
Mhm. Those
And
damn
this isn't
men.
not a problem with men. Like men, it's not their fault that they were studied and now
Yeah,
that like they've got all of this advice. It's just like, oh, we need to take a collective pause and give ourselves a chance to catch up because the half of the planet has been left behind in the creation of this industry.
yeah. So during different phases, do you recommend women eat differently? So if they're in ovulation versus another phase of the cycle,
Yes,
you,
definitely.
you
And
do. So give
I,
us
I
an idea about that.
yeah. So here's a way that's really easy. If you're like, this feels overwhelming, there's so much information, I don't know what I'm doing. It's a really great way to think about the 4 phases that I heard from someone else. So I did not come up with this idea, but the inner seasons of our body really match the outer season. So your period is like winter. And so if you think about what are the things that you need in winter to support your body, you may need some heavier foods, warmer foods, some kind of soothing and comforting foods, higher in fat without being unhealthy, right? Because we talk about a lot of those cravings, but if we're really going to what we're needing in that time, really looking at some of those warming foods, that can be really, really powerful for the body. Then the next phase is the follicular phase. So this is when our estrogen starts to come up and we are having more energy. So this is our inner springtime. So thinking about the things you would naturally want to do in spring. Lighter. That's when we see a lot of spring salads come out, lean proteins, fresh, light, energized, lots of sunshine. So feeding your body all year long around kind of that spring energy in the follicular phase will feel really good. Ovulation is summertime. It's hot. It's potent. Think
Yeah.
about what hot, hot, hot. And it's like kind of the shortest phase, right? So think about what kind of stuff would you need to nourish your body. I typically eat more fruits. Again, kind of that really light, you may feel so energized and potent, you don't want to stop to eat as much. That works pretty well in that phase. Then we get into the last phase, the luteal phase, which really is broken up into 2 parts, but it's like our inner autumn season. So the first part is that harvest. It can be a little bit hardy. And then we're moving into the last couple of days before our period starts. So think about those last few fall days before winter arrives. You may be more sensitive. You may need more nourishment as you're kind of going into hibernation mode. And so that's definitely the last 4 to 5 days of the cycle is when we really need an additional 20% increase in calories. This allows our body, so that's a lot. That can be 200 to 300 extra calories. So when we're not thinking about that, if you are not getting the extra calories that you need, what our body does to reach for homeostasis or balance is to make us crave junk food because it will be fast, it will be quick, and it's very predictable as to what it does in the brain. So we will eat those foods because our body knows we need extra calories fast, and then we end up feeling crappy because it doesn't really have the nutrients that we're needing.
Right.
So when we don't do it on purpose, our body will do it on accident in the form of cravings. And we tend to not feel so good on the other side of those decisions because it's not what our body really needed. Yes, it needed the extra calories, but that could have looked like some extra avocado or a couple extra eggs or more steak at night, right? We need additional calories. That's the true part. But what calories we reach for is really important. And our body's trying to tell us something with those cravings. But if you've never been taught a language of how to decode all of these things, it can just feel like you're a crazy person if
Yeah.
you're a woman.
Yes.
You're crazy. It's like,
It's
oh, what's wrong with
so,
me? I'm
so
crazy.
yes. So now what about a woman who is in menopause?
Yeah.
I went through it, so I know. There's a
Yeah.
lot going on there. So what do you recommend as far as eating for a woman in menopause? And what other recommendations would you offer?
Yeah. So menopause is a 1 day event. So it's like you haven't had your period for a whole year. You have this 1 day. It's like the day it's menarche, right? Like your first period started, it's like a flag in the sand. Menopause is like that too. It's like, boom, now I am post-menopausal. It's this 1 day party that everyone should throw themselves when they're like, I made it 365 without a period. I'm in menopause now, and like throw themselves a party. So the time that can be really confusing is that time leading up to menopause because that can feel like a lot of heavy variation. So maybe you have 2 periods in a month and then you go 3 months without having a period, right? There's all of this really confusing stuff that's going on. And so one of the things we really recommend is that folks start tracking their cycle earlier. Because if you start tracking it in your 20s and 30s, you will get clues as to the fact that you are now leaving your hormonal baseline. And if you understand the cycle, then you can say, okay, I need this kind of support or I need this kind of support. You can kind of decode the puzzle if you know, hey, to my doctor, hey, my period used to be 28, every 28 days I would have a period. And now I'm about at every 45 days. What's going on? Right? So that would actually show me your estrogen is dropping because it's now taking longer to do the whole process that's going to make you ovulate, which will then lead to your period. So maybe you could use some bioidentical replacement for estrogen. But when we don't have a history of tracking it, that can make the puzzle pieces feel even more complicated and confusing. So if you're listening to this and you're not in perimenopause yet, please start tracking your cycle immediately because
Yeah.
you are going to understand yourself. And then that will make the perimenopause journey a lot easier. Now, if you're already in perimenopause and you have very free range cycles, that's what we like to call them. They're a little bit all over the place, a little free range. We don't like to call them irregular. That can feel ouchy. We're like, they're just a little free range right now. So we can, because that's kind of like one of our come froms is everything in women's health has been layered in shame and a negativity and almost like, oh yeah, your period should be painful. Oh, childbirth should be painful because it just sucks to be a woman. And I'm like, is that true? I don't think that has to be true. I think we just lack the support that we need to live with dignity in our cyclical bodies.
Yeah.
So if you're in that camp, you've never learned these things, and you're like, what the hell do I do now? This is crazy. Just start tracking whatever you can. And then if your periods are still really far apart, use the moon, like we talked about. So that's like the new moon, when the moon is black in the sky, that's your period. That can be your period time, right? It's a really energy of kind of slowing down. Think of it like energetically, there's no more light left on the moon. So you're really like on your period. Then the moon starts to wax. So it starts to get bigger in the sky. That's like boom, springtime energy is coming back up, right? So we're starting to get that big peak of energy. Ovulation is the full moon, and then we go back down the other side. So we can start to see if you are having a free range cycle, how to tap into some of these flows and fluctuations to reach for some support for yourself while your cycle is all over the place.
Right. Well, that's great advice. And as you're talking about this, I'm thinking that the moon also controls the tides, right? And we're all connected. So obviously, there is that connection between the moon and our cycle and how we're feeling, which I never
Yeah,
really thought
the
about that.
moon That's so true, right? The moon moves all the water. It moves the
Yes,
tides because it's water. We are 70% water. Of
yes,
course, if there's an energy force that is moving if it can move an ocean, babe, it can move the water in your body. Of course, there are going to be these fluctuations. And there is this theory that before there was non-natural light, everyone cycled with the moon because full moon, boom, that's a lot of light. You can see how light it is outside. And
Yeah.
if everyone around you can get pregnant, everyone's going to throw a party around the full moon, right? It's just like you start to see these like patterns and then these declines. And it's really interesting to see human behavior, how we feel like we're so far advanced. And yet, if you talk to anyone who works in the ER, talk to elementary school teachers, they'll always know when it's a full moon because their kids start acting weird. There are more accidents and incidents in hospital systems during the full moon because my theory is everyone knows everyone can get pregnant. And so it just like creates mayhem for the men in the world. They're like, what? There's so much estrogen floating around. I should go make a baby with somebody. Instead, I'm going to be a crazy person. Like, I don't know. It's just, there's too many pieces of it for us to not, for it not to make sense.
Yeah.
Even before this calendar system that we had, there were tracking 13 calendar months of the year. 28 there, if you split it out like that, there's about 28 days for 13 months, and there are 13 moons that we go through. There was like a purpose and intention behind us following the seasons and patterns. And when we kept moving into the modern world, we really let go of a lot of that wisdom in order to have more efficiency. And what we have found is we're feeling depleted, exhausted, worn out because we're not supposed to work this way. We're not robots. Humans are not, this is not supposed to be how we feel all the time. And so we have all these things that have created modern convenience that have stripped us from the health that we deserve. And it's
Wow.
pretty sad.
Wow. Yes, very powerful information.
Yeah.
Yeah. For younger women, when they're getting their period, they're very emotional and they get bloated and they're retaining water. What's your advice as far as that goes?
Absolutely. Would get really curious around what foods are working for you versus what foods are not working for your body. And again, there's like these interesting and sad kind of complex layers because I myself have found I can't eat gluten. If I eat gluten in the US, I get pretty sick. Like I'll get brain fog, I'll get really bloated. And when I'm in a different country, I don't have the same impact when I eat gluten.
I
Same thing
heard
now,
that.
dairy. Dairy's like off my list. Like oh God, it just makes me pretty sick if I eat dairy. But if I eat dairy in a different country, it doesn't have the same impact because it's also looking at the chemical load and the way we're processing food and the things that are getting sprayed on the plants. And so I understand why people are like, this is all too much. It's all too complicated. What the heck am I supposed to do as this one person in this system that's not really built for me? So I don't want people to leave with that message of there's no hope. But I would really, again, if you're experiencing those symptoms, I want you to write them down and see if you can find a pattern. See if like, oh, it's like the 3 days before my period, that's what's going on. Because if you can start to see the pattern, then you can say, okay, what am I doing every single month, 3 days before my period starts, that is leading to unintentionally some of these additional symptoms. Maybe you're relying heavily on caffeine, relying heavily on fast foods, fast processed foods, whatever the case may be. Because once you're understanding that pattern, then we can help you make a new choice. But if you don't understand what's going on by tracking it, it will be really, really almost impossible to know what you need to change, right?
Yeah.
Because there's too many variables. So we really have to start tracking first as the first step.
Yeah, that's great advice. Like keeping a food journal almost as well, right?
Yeah.
So you eat dairy, and let's say 2 hours later, you have a tremendous amount of gas and your stomach is distended. Write that down so you see the
Yeah.
correlation. Because, I mean, it's really hard to just leave it to memory and say, oh, yeah, 3 days ago I had a lot of dairy. Who remembers what you ate 3 days ago, right?
Impossible. There's
So,
too much
yeah,
going on. Yeah.
keeping a journal on that and the cycle and how you're feeling is really important. So
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
go
Yeah. Yeah.
back to your app then. So the app is for anyone who's looking
Yeah.
to lose weight or just get healthier or deal with your cycles.
We've got exercise content in there. We've got food content. We create new blogs all of the time. We're putting in new resources. So there's a tremendous resource library of like articles on what you may be experiencing. We talk about parenting with the cycle, relationships with the cycle. So it's really a holistic health hub for starting to understand this like map, this like wave kind of map of your hormones, how that overlays with everything else in your life, and how it either is making your life easier or harder. But we just break it down into really small steps. So the first page is your agenda page. You're going to see what phase you're in today. It's going to give you some recommendations on what to work on and what self-care items to focus on. Then if you track your symptoms, we've got a cycle store in there. So we actually recommend products for people to reduce the symptoms that they're having by offering a direct product that really lines up well with, like, let's say they're having bloating, we have some supplements that are recommended for bloating. Say they're having period cramps, we've got some period pain recommendations, right? So we tie their need to some different support systems in there. And then we can connect their calendar to their cycle to their Google Calendar. So when they're at work, they understand what are those things that are in play. So truly, it's a very, very comprehensive platform to help people start to map together all of these different things about their hormones and how it's impacting them.
Okay, I need to have the app, so I put it in the show notes so people can
Yeah,
grab it from there, which would be
totally.
great. Alyx, final thoughts. What would you want to leave us with today?
I just want to leave everyone with, you are not broken. You're just cyclical. I wasn't taught how to work with my body. I had a lot of indoctrinated things early on that I just assumed being a woman sucked and I would just like have to suck it up. And that's just not true. Women are magical. Being cyclical is magical. The way estrogen works with our brain, we're four different people throughout the month, and that is beautiful. That gives us access to different skill sets, different executive function, different gifts of our personality shine through in the different phases. And so once you start to see that you are actually super magically made as this hormonal cyclical creature, and really starting to understand the benefits of each phase, then our life gets a lot easier. So that's what I would like to leave you with. You're not weird, you're not broken, you're just cyclical in a world that has seen men as default for human, and they're just missing half the story.
And what about for a woman who's past menopause?
Yeah, I would say there can be a lot of grief. We've talked to a lot of older women who are like, man, I wish I would have known this earlier. I'm really bummed out. Like my life would have been easier. I'm looking back and I'm kind of combing through. And there's a lot of places that things would have been easier had I had access to this information. And so I would say like, ooh, hold some space for grief. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to feel like, man, that was a big miss. I really lost out on that opportunity because I didn't have access to the information. My life would have been different. And whew, after you have space for that grief, it's like saying, okay, now what? How can I support my nieces, younger women in my life? How can I let them know? And how can I use the moon as a ritual back to my feminine energy, even though I'm no longer bleeding? How can I find a safe place to land and grieve what I lost by creating a new ritual for yourself around your feminine energy flow? So that's what we would recommend. And we just offer a lot of compassion because all the women who've gone through it allowed us to be able to make this company now. They paved the way for women to be able to do other things, to be able to own businesses, to be able to go out there. And like for me to do this now is only possible because of all the work of women that have come before me chipping away at this problem. And so to that, I say thank you. And also, I'm sorry. And we can recreate a new world together.
That's beautiful. Yes, absolutely. That's a beautiful way to end this beautiful conversation. It really is. Alyx, thank you so much for joining me here today. Very touching. I feel emotional from it,
Me
really,
too.
what you just said, because we suffer as women so much. And one other thing I wanted to mention before we go is I remember hearing that back probably in the 60s and the 70s and even probably into the 80s, when a woman went into menopause, a lot of times they would be looked at as being crazy or having mental issues. And a lot of times they would be given a hysterectomy. And that was the solution to
Yeah.
their problem, which it wasn't the solution, but
No.
that's what they were doing back then.
Right. And it's so hard, we're wrapping this up, but it's so hard when we like that is essentially castration, right? It's like
Yeah.
cutting out your sex hormones. We would never say to men that the way to solve this problem is to chop your balls off. Like men would never agree to that. And yet it's so normalized because the pain is so great. Women are willing to do anything to get rid of that pain. And the only solutions they're offered typically are birth control or a full hysterectomy. We deserve other treatment options. And because researchers have refused to study us, we're not getting those options. And so, yes, that was not the right answer. And that is a lot of grief too. Like, wow, that is something that was taken from you. And I know when women get to that breaking point, because they've typically been in pain for 10 to 15 years before they agree to a hysterectomy, no one should live for 10 to 15 years in that misery. And the only reason we're there is because we don't orient or treat or really support women's hormonal health conditions. And so they're left flapping in the wind. And that is not acceptable. We deserve so much better than that. And so for anyone who has had that happen to you, I'm really sorry. You deserved a doctor who understood what to get to the root so that you didn't have to lose this, because our hormones directly impact our sex life. They impact our personality. They impact everything about us, which is why they protect men's hormones. They protect testosterone production because they understand that connection of how much it makes us who we are. And yet they're not willing to give women the same level of support. So it's something we really all have to kind of come together on and demand better access and more equitable treatment in the medical field.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's a great ending for today. Alyx, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you coming on. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. I appreciate each and every one of you. If this episode resonated with you, please leave me a comment and let me know. And if you think that this episode could help anyone who you know and love, kindly share it out with them as well. And please be sure to subscribe to my channel, because every week I send out more great content to help you live your best life ever. Again, thank you for being here. I appreciate each and every one of you. And please be sure to follow me